addition, instead of the sub-zero temperatures continuing to drop, they did the exact opposite to where they actually became balmy. Even more astounding is that they began to experience a warm wind blowing down from the north. Finally, they began to notice fresh bits of twigs and leaves in the water, large flocks of birds and migrations of butterflies where there should have been no such thing, and other odd phenomena which seemed to indicate that they were traveling southward and not northward. One clear example of a purported penetration into the inner Earth which was not planned, is found in a biographical book written by Willis George Emerson entitled The Smoky God. In this book, Emerson relates the tale of a father and son Norwegian fishing team whose small vessel is driven by a fierce oceanic storm until they find themselves sailing over the lip of the northern polar opening, what scientists refer to as the polar basin. The son, Olaf Jansen, claimed that this occurred in April of 1829. For the next 2 years, Olaf Jansen claimed that he and his father lived with the kind, courteous inhabitants of the inner Earth, who measured some 12 feet in height. After this time, Jansen claimed that they exited the inner Earth via the South Pole opening. The book derives its name from the fact that Olaf described the mini-sun as being smoky in appearance. In accordance with the story of Norwegian Olaf Jansen, the adherents of the hollow Earth theory agree that an entrance to the inner Earth exists at the South Pole as well. Similar to the BYRD account which describes the inhabitants of the inner Earth speaking English with a Germanic accent, some New Agers claim that these underworlders are actually the descendants of the Nazis, who with their technology, escaped to the inner Earth via the South Pole following their defeat at the close of World War II. It is said that part of this technology included the first prototype flying discs, and that current UFO sightings are modern versions of the same which follow flight corridors across South America leading from the South Pole. It is because of tales like these that some people are convinced that there is a greater reason for the presence of foreign governments on Antarctica than what has actually been stated publicly. To add credence to these thoughts, hollow Earth theorists point to a few disturbing facts. For example, when British camera crews for the BBC arranged for a visit to Antarctica, they were confronted with several unanticipated problems. While their original itinerary, which was planned well in advance, included a direct flight from South Africa to Antarctica, which would have included an overflight of this so-called area of inaccessibility, their plans were somehow bungled, and they were forced to travel first to South America. Upon arriving there, they discovered that the only commercial flight available to the subcontinent was operated by an American company, which ferried some 20 to 30 people at a time to the American base of Murdoch Station. These flights were only available during the summer months. Not only that, but when they finally did arrive at their destination, the Britons were treated with a degree of hostility by the Americans. Another point worthy of note is that it was discovered that due to the lack of any satellites flying over Antarctica, all weather reports originated on the ground from Murdoch Station itself. Hollow Earth theorists conclude that this is a direct step taken by the Americans to prevent the release of any satellite images of the South Pole which might show the polar opening. Another recent development which has also been viewed as a part of the overall conspiracy to hide the truth from the world, is that in recent years, an agreement was signed by various nations which would prohibit oil and mineral exploration on Antarctica for the next 50 years. The last piece of purported evidence used by hollow Earth theorists is the claim that the ozone hole over Antarctica is directly above the so-called South Polar opening. As you will see shortly, this may have deeper implications, that what at first may be apparent to the untrained individual. Hollow Earth theorists point to other unusual signs as well in order to prove that something strange exists at both the extremes of planet Earth. One of these signs is that of mammoth tusks which have been continually found on some of the islands situated within the Arctic Circle north of Russia. If this story is true, what is odd about this is the fact that it is claimed that for at least the past several hundred years, traders have gathered and sold these tusks, yet more continue to accumulate there. These mammoth tusks are directly related to another strange phenomenon, and that is that for a number of years now, the carcasses of woolly mammoths have been found frozen in ice in Siberia and other regions of the Arctic Circle. I remember reading years ago that some of these even had fresh grass in their mouths. While I believe that these well-preserved carcasses are the result of a sudden worldwide catastrophe of thousands of years ago referred to as Noah's flood, which quickly froze many species of animals which existed at the time, hollow earth theorists claim that these carcasses point to the fact that woolly mammoths still thrive within the inner earth. It has been a long-held belief within certain Asian cultures and now within New Age thought as well, that rather than being comprised of a solid area of dense bedrock known as the mantle, the interior of the earth is more akin to Swiss cheese, in that it is permeated with the vast interconnecting system of underground caves and subterranean tunnels. In certain places, this global system is said to lead down to the inner earth. From the research I did, these sites are quite often said to be situated in or near deep mining operations and volcanic peaks located in various countries throughout the world, as well as in the Himalayan mountain range in the Gobi Desert. 14,000-foot Mount Shasta, an extinct volcano located in Northern California, USA, is also claimed to be one such site. The true believers are convinced that this snow-capped mountain is actually the home of a large multi-tiered subterranean city known as Telos. There are often groups of New Age shamans and their followers camping out on the slopes of this mountain, hoping that they will be blessed either with a unique spiritual encounter, or with a UFO sighting, or perhaps even with locating one of these fabled entrances to the famed 5-level subterranean city. Another story related to this concerns the San Andreas Fault located in the state of California, USA. While geologists point to the tectonic plate theory and claim that this fault line is a result of the Pacific plate pushing against the continental plate, some hollow earth theorists interpret the matter quite differently. According to them, and I must admit that I have heard this same thing for the past several decades, since the 1950s, the American government has sent nuclear-powered submarines to explore the underwater topography of the western coast of the United States of America. It is claimed that while mapping this area, they were surprised to discover that the continental shelf is pocketed with many huge caverns and passageways, some of which are large enough to easily allow a submarine to navigate through them. The horror came when, after years of carefully and meticulously mapping this submarine world, they realized that some of these caverns and tunnels extended as far back as the states of Utah and Nevada. In fact, one story claims that a certain American submarine, which was supposedly lost at open sea, was actually lost while exploring one of these hidden caverns. However, the most shocking thing they are said to have discovered is the fact that the state of California is basically hanging over the ocean. That is, it is for the most part floating on top of the ocean, being supported by a series of submarine limestone pillars. While most people believe that the many earthquakes which have been experienced in California are due to shifts in these various tectonic plates, some hollow earth theorists propose that they are actually caused by the collapse of some of these larger submarine caverns. In fact, they suggest that this is the real nature of the San Andreas Fault, that is, it is either a submarine tunnel, or a series of large caverns, which have simply collapsed, creating the depression which is seen above ground. If the above is indeed true, then the end result is quite obvious, even to one who doesn't have a degree in geology. If and when enough of those caverns and pillars collapse, most of California will break off and simply fall into the ocean. As tragic and as widespread as the loss of life would be, if this were to truly happen, I would personally view it as a severe judgment of the Lord due to the great degree of evil and deception which originates in, and which is also propagated from that state. Everyone knows that California is the haven for New Age thought, pay-per-minute psychics, homosexual and lesbian rights groups, and a plethora of other negative influences which have plagued America for literally decades, such as the violent and antichrist television and film industry. Not only that, but it is the center for the very technology which may someday soon be used to enslave mankind, that is, the computer industry. While we computer-literate Christians view our machines as a blessing and a valuable tool for spreading the gospel of Jesus Christ, we are also fully aware that there is a dark side to this age of electronic wonders as well. May I suggest that you read my article Mondix and the Mark of the Beast. This is not the only information which is used to support the hollow earth theory. One piece of evidence to which the believers point as proof of the existence of a hollow earth has absolutely nothing to do with the earth itself. This concerns certain photographs which have been taken of some of the other bodies in our planetary system. Due in part to certain deep craters and dark spots found at the polar regions and other surface areas of some of these celestial bodies, the proponents of the hollow earth theory have come to the conclusion that they must also be hollow spheres, and that these craters or dark spots are likewise openings to these inner worlds. Furthermore, it has been suggested that some of these spheres might possibly be artificial in nature. At this point, the tales take some very unusual turns in the direction of soon-coming hostile alien invasions of the Earth and other such stories. However, on the serious side, if the information is to be believed, the planet Mars may offer some convincing evidence of the hollow Earth theory due to some strange occurrences which are said to have been observed at its poles. Due to various factors, such as its distance from the Sun, the Martian year is almost twice as long as an Earth year, being 687 days. During half of this period, one Martian ice cap will expand in size while the other will do the exact opposite. This expansion can be anywhere from 10 to 20 times its smallest size, which has been estimated at around 400 miles in diameter. It is also noteworthy that the Martian polar ice caps always maintain a definite circular shape. At any rate, during the final half of the year, the expanded ice cap will rapidly shrink, while the opposite line will grow in size. Where the excitement comes for hollow earth theorists is in the fact that on some occasions, the ice caps have shrunk to slightly less than their normal minimum diameter. It is claimed that it is at these times that astronomers have observed a black area, or a perimeter, surrounding the ice caps. While astronomers have tried to dismiss this fact, some hollow earth theorists are convinced that this is nothing less than the outer edge of the polar opening leading into the inner world of Mars. According to one theorist, the temperature and climate inside other hollow planets such as Mars may be very similar to that found inside the hollow Earth. In other words, it is quite tropical in nature. If this is true, then it would result in the natural formation of a huge cloud mass at the polar entrances where the warm moist air from the interior of the planet rises to collide with the cold polar air on the outside of the planet. This temperature variation would be even greater during the Martian winter season, and thus would readily explain the sudden expansion and reduction of the cloud masses during each half of the Martian year. What has also elated hollow earth theorists, and added more weight to their theory, was the announcement that ice cliffs composed of actual water, and not of carbon dioxide, have been discovered at the Martian polar regions. But this is not the only mystery which has been revealed on the planet Mars. In their ongoing attempt to reinforce their argument with even more scientific validity, it has been pointed out by some of the more serious-minded hollow earth theorists, that on certain occasions, scientists and astronomers have detected odd brilliant flashes of light originating at the poles of some of these celestial orbs, such as on the Moon and Mars. What do these sporadic flashes have to do with the hollow earth theory? This brings us back down to Earth, and to a natural phenomenon known in the northern hemisphere as the aurora borealis, and in the southern hemisphere as the aurora australis, that is, the northern and the southern lights. Scientists claim that these spectacular nocturnal light shows are the result of electrically charged particles from the sun striking the magnetic field which surrounds the Earth. The lights are said to be most prominent during periods of high solar activity, that is, when sunspots are at their peak. However, hollow earth theorists propose a completely different explanation for those awe-inspiring nocturnal light shows. They claim that every so often, the mini-sun within the core of the Earth will be perfectly aligned with one of the polar openings. These openings are said to be some 1,400 miles in